Okay, so we are joined here in Portsmouth with Will Harris, Justine Mettraux from Team Malizia. And Will, let me just say to you, as I said before, as I saw you walking in, well done, good leg, great finish. For anybody that wasn't following that leg, it started pretty well. You were in the hunt, but then something happened around Dover and you guys had a hell of a last sort of 24 hours. Can you just kind of bring us up to speed?
Yeah, I mean, to summarize the leg quickly, I could, be speaking here for about an hour. So it's, just trying to sort of cover the main points. But, the start was incredible to have all the boats there in keel and full speed. Obviously got a bit too high action for some of them. But we were definitely in the hunt from the start. We felt really fast, feeling good. We were in third place in the North Sea and sort of lost out a bit in the light wind transition and sort of had 15 miles to second place Archaea. But I think we sort of said at that point, right, we're in the hunt. We're going to see what we can do, see if we can catch up some miles, and played a slightly different strategy at Dover. Got a little bit lucky with some of the wind shifts. With all this hot weather in the UK, I think it was really making the wind doing total 180s, but the team was working really hard and managed to catch up closely to Archaea. And then the last 36 hours was just some of the most intense racing on these Imocas, tacking through the TSS. There must have been about 50 tacks to do. But we were always slowly catching up with that second place and eventually managed to find a nice little wind shift in the last few hours. I think tiredness probably was setting in there and we managed to just make a slightly different manoeuvre to them and managed to sneak past to take the second place. So it was really cool. It was very good work from Justine as the navigator. She chose some really good options there and really good routes. So yeah, very happy to come away with the second. It's a solid result, and we'll have to see how it goes in the next ones.
Justine, I didn't realize that you were doing the navigation for this leg, and it's fair to say that you guys got second place because you did make some very sensible decisions. I know it's a team, but well done. For this leg, was it tougher than you thought? We knew it was going to be quite hard on the mind, lots of obstacles. Was it more pleasant sailing? How did it kind of match up with your expectations?
Yeah, I think on the navigation side, I was also really lucky to have Will by my side to help making some of the decisions and also with the local knowledge at the end. He made the move for the last jibe because I was driving, so that really paid off. And yeah, I think for sure it was intense and had also to deal with a lot of maneuvers, which bring with them for sure a lot of tiredness because you can't rest during some of the off watches, and also still trying to make the good decisions along the way. It was a good challenge, and for sure really the leg was not long, but really intense and really demanding, I think, for all the sailors.
I didn't get a chance to count how many maneuvers you guys did over the top, sort of past Aarhus and into the North Sea, and then past the TSS. But Will, just give us an idea. If you're on these Imocas, how much sleep are you getting when you're in that bounce? Because attack is not 2 minutes; it's like 15 minutes of preparation. Do you just go into your bunk in full kit? What's life like when you're in that battle for the maneuvers?
Yeah, it's really tough, to be honest, and especially on the Ocean Race Europe, we're going to be doing a lot of it. We're always turning corners, always going around these different places where we've got to be doing VMG angles, tacking or jibing. And it's really exhausting. The foils on the boats, we've got to lift them up and down. They're weighing about 300 kilos each. And it's about a 3-minute sort of process of winding and adjusting them to get that to go up and down. So in total, it's about 6 minutes to prepare the tack and about 4 or 5 minutes afterwards. So 11 minutes of like full intensity workout. And we were tacking every 25 minutes. So, you've got about 12 minutes between each one to try and get some sleep. So even if it's your off watch, you're not really managing to sleep in that time. So the top of Skagen, we knew it was coming. I was definitely expecting that. I think it was this second half of the leg where we didn't really know what the wind was going to be. And it ended up being exactly what we didn't want really, which is, total 180s in the wind and tacking every 20 minutes again. So, it's a lot of work. It's you're really kind of hoping for the end of it. But the good thing was we had a boat very close to us. We had a goal in our sights, and we managed to make the most of it in the end. So, it was very intense.
Justine, when that's happening, when you're doing that, is it just a case of you get up, you pull the sails up, you put the sails down, you furl, you unfurl, you're on the winches, and then you just fall back into your bunk? Do you get anything resembling meaningful sleep, a chance to wash, a chance to relax? Does that ever happen?
Yeah, for sure, there were not that many relaxing times, and as Will said, just after a maneuver, also you grind and you had physical activity. So it takes time, also, even if you go straight back into your bank to manage to relax again, to fall into sleep and recuperation. So yeah, that's even if you go straight to the bank, and even if we try to take care of the other sailors, saying, okay, you're not on watch, you can go. We manage the end of the maneuver. Yeah, it's hard to really recover.
And how hot was it? Because it's been really hot here. It's been really hot in Europe. I was thinking, you're enclosed in this small boat. Was it all right? How what was the temperature like?
Yeah, I think for us, as we were a bit more north, coming down, it was not that warm for us, and even some of the nights were a bit chilly. So yeah, I think we've been a bit preserved from the heat wave that happened in Europe the last days.
And for that next leg that we've got, which is from here down to Porto, down to Cartagena, and then obviously into the Mediterranean, we are having these heat waves. I'm sure you've thought about it. I'm sure you're thinking, oh, I'm going to be in the Mediterranean, bobbing around on a small boat in light winds in potentially 50 degrees of temperature. How are you sort of preparing for that, kit-wise, but also just sort of mentally-wise as well?
Yeah, this next leg is...
Sorry to scare you.
No, yeah. It's already coming up pretty quick. It feels like we just finished, but it's a whole variation. We're starting here in Cowes. I'm in the Solent and just off Cowes, and we're going to be racing all the way around to the Mediterranean, which is it's a lot of change in terms of temperature, in terms of conditions. In terms of kit, I wore the same thing for this entire one. It was the merino base layers. That I can see them just over here on the wall, but they're literally fantastic. They're really good at adapting to the different temperatures. I wear them under the pair of shorts and just the base layer on the top. And it's a fantastic piece of kit. You can jump in the bunk quickly. It keeps you nicely protected. Even if you're sweaty, if you go to bed without any clothes on, it actually gives you rashes and things like this. So it's you've got to keep some sort of layer on, but they're really thin to give you a little bit of warmth when you need it, but also keep you cool even on a sunny day like that. So I put them on at the start, and I didn't take them off until I got to my apartment for a shower at the end here. So it's we're going to have to adapt a lot. We put on different layers as we go. The good thing is we're inside in these boats now. But like you said, it's not always good. We have solar panels on the roof, and they're directly above some of the bunks, and it can reach like 40 degrees in the bunk areas. So imagine you've just done 10 minutes of extremely high physical activity, and you have to jump in a bunk and try and go to sleep in 10 minutes. It's really challenging. But I think the more we do it, the more our bodies will just say, right, I've got to go to sleep now. We just got to get on with it. And this next leg's going to be a whole mixture of that, I think. So
what Will's describing sounds horrible. You've obviously sailed. I mean, it does. It sounds horrible. That's why I don't do it. But you've sailed around the world. You've sort of taken on that challenge, really sort of spread out. What do you prefer? How do you find this one? Because it's intense, but it's shorter. You must have had some very lonely nights at sea in the Southern Ocean. What's that difference feeling when you're on the boat alone in the Southern Ocean, as opposed to you're on the boat cooped up with Will, with Boris, with the rest of the team? Which one is your favorite?
Yeah, I think I really enjoy both, and it's really different challenges as well. I think for sure here in the Ocean Race Europe, it's really shorter leg, more coastal racing. So it makes a lot of difference. You also have to pay really more attention on what happens with the shore effects, which can be really local, where on over the globe you play more bigger picture with the weather systems. But yeah, I always really enjoy to be able to mix both crewed and single-handed racing, and it's always really interesting to sail with other sailors. We can really use the boats 100% all the time, and you can feel the difference with the potential we see from the boats when we sail crewed or when we sail solo. Even in the trainings we did this spring with the Paul Finisterre. So that's also really interesting to see how much you can take from the boat.
Does it still scare you? Do you ever get to the point where the boat is going so fast and it accelerates so quickly that do you ever get scared?
I think for sure, depending on the conditions, there can be some stress that you have to really manage the boat and manage the efforts there is on the boat, and but there is always a way to slow down a bit if you need and ease a bit the sheets and try to find a safe mode with the conditions, and it's even easier to do when you're with other sailors on board. So that's why I think we can manage to really push the boat harder when we are in crew configuration.
But with that crew configuration, I mean, Will, just how do you not have an argument? Because if you were going on holiday as a family and you said we're going to be in this one room apartment and we're never going to go outside and we're all going to be taking very little sleep and eating, food that's not fresh, you'd kill each other. How do you not have an argument when you're in that situation?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's pretty close quarters we have, but I think especially when you're getting really tired, it's it can be hard, and especially when you're trying to overtake another boat. But I think the team, we had a really good dynamic. We worked really well together. I wasn't jealous of Justine having to jump on the navigation every time we did attack as well. I could go and run to the bunk at least and try and sleep, whereas Justine would have to go look at the weather as well. So, we got to. Part of the racing is teamwork, and we've got to figure out how to get around the race course as best as possible. And we're all different sailors. We're all from solo sailing backgrounds as well, so we all have our own opinions. But the thing we did really well, I think, in this leg is we combined our opinions, and we combined what we thought we knew and opened it into a discussion to make the best decisions possible. And I think we managed to keep doing that even when it got quite tough at the end there. We had a few issues at the end with some of our furling sails, and we were kind of losing again to Archaea at the end there, but we managed to come back really nicely from it. Everyone worked really hard. We knew what roles we had to do, and we managed to sort of execute a nice little overtake at the end there, and we're really rewarded with it in the end there. So I think we sailed really nicely as a team, and we didn't bite each other's heads off in the end. So,
Malizia, you guys have a really good reputation for sailing hard but looking like you're having fun, which I think is it's fantastic. Is that by accident? Is it something that you say, no, we have to find the fun in this, we have to keep going? How does that happy dynamic come about?
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear what Justine thinks about it as well afterwards, because this is the first sailing she's really done with the team. You only got to do 1 or 2 days practice before this, so kind of threw you in the deep end with being responsible for choosing how close we go to the rocks and things like this. But it's always been a bit the philosophy of the team, making sure firstly that we're sort of sharing whatever we're doing in the racing. We're on the boat, we're very lucky to get to do these experiences, to sail these boats, sail these races, and an important part of it is sharing it with everyone back at home, and in doing that, naturally you end up being more open to sort of finding the more the fun sides of it, and not just being totally wound up by the racing and the results. And I think especially when it gets harder, it actually makes it easier for us being like that, because we get less worked up and we end up making less mistakes, because we sort of operate on a much more level sort of emotional playing field, I think. In these longer legs, like the ocean race, I think that's really helpful because it's a lot longer time. But definitely in these shorter legs, even at the end there, it was starting to get quite long. So I think we managed to sort of keep that going and use that to our advantage at the end as well. And sail on different boats, and every boat has their own dynamic, and there's advantages and weaknesses to each of them. But I think we've got our own style of doing it, and we'll see if it works at the end.
Justine, Will's obviously been with the team for a long time. Do you agree with that? I mean, as a new person in the boat, is it actually horrible? I mean, is it that nice on board?
No, it's really nice. I think there is a really good and nice dynamic with the team on board and with all the team around the sailors as well. So really nice to see that, and that you can push the boat hard and also enjoy the sailing for sure. And there is a good dynamic. There are also a lot of skills in the team and around us. So that's also really nice.
One last question for Will before I'll see if anybody else here has got any questions. But I mean, it's great to hear that it is fun and it is enjoyable, and I bet it felt fun going from third into second with all that hard work paying off. There's a lot of young people that I've seen sort of down on the dock, looking over the barrier, having a look at the boats. For someone like yourself, Will, you're not that old. it wasn't that long ago when you were sat in race control watching the racing, and now you're there sort of doing it and standing on podiums and things. Any words of wisdom for anybody that's here in Portsmouth or watching the race, watching the boats and thinking, I'd love me a piece of that? There's obviously a lot of things have got to line up, bit of luck, but what can they do to increase their odds of getting on an Imoca?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. And yeah, it wasn't that long ago that I was sat with you in race control, Niall, when I was 23 actually, in the 27 edition of the race, and telling Niall that I wanted to do the race next time as well. Yeah, I think there's no one specific path. It's a very it's for sure it's a challenge to get into these boats, and especially when there's not many crew on the boats as well. It's a crewed race, but we're only 4 sailors, so there's not a huge number of spaces for everyone. But I think the thing that really helped me sort of get into this was, I started in dinghies. I started with the ROA program, doing an Optimist, sailing 29ers, and then went to study oceanography at Southampton, and that's where I really got the opportunity to start sailing in cows, and first sailed a yacht with a winch and things like this, and that's where I really sort of found the passion for ocean racing. But I think the thing for me that from that moment that really allowed me to progress in the offshore sailing world was just getting on as many boats as possible, and really starting from the bottom. If you can show that you're enthusiastic, show that you want to be there, and you're willing to sacrifice your time or a spare weekend or anything like that to go and help out on a boat which you want to go sailing on, and things like that. If the more you can try and get out there and get experience, the better you'll build up your network, and you just find more and more opportunities, I think. And you're kind of creating your own luck then, and you get to meet the right person at the right time. And luckily for me, a few months later, I heard that Boris Hum was looking for a co-skipper in the TJV, and I just sent him an email saying, can I be your co-skipper? And he said yes, and that was it. I was still a Figaro sailor. I'd never done any Imoca sailing before, and it was just the right moment and the right time. And so you've got to just try and think for yourself a bit about the opportunities. Who can I ask to get out on the water? And I think if you ask enough times, eventually they'll say yes. But
yeah, it's really nice to see how far both of you guys have come, and I know that we are in the early stages of this race, so I'm not going to jinx what's to come, but I will say well done for leg 1. That was a really strong result. Any questions from anybody here? I can put to Will, put to Justine. It's not very rare that we get them on shore, and it's not every day that we get to ask them any questions. Any questions from anybody in the room? Yeah. So an understanding of what the work you guys do, and I know that your team does a lot of work on kind of climate awareness and ocean action. Will, do you want to take that one on? What do you guys up to at the moment?
So our work with climate action has been at the heart of the campaign since the very start, since I joined it in 2019. There's a number of different ways that we work on it, but initially it was through something called My Ocean Challenge, which is around trying to create education material for the future generation, for kids to understand about what is climate change and what do we need to change in our day-to-day lives in order to make or do better things for the planet. And that was really something that I really recognized when I first joined it. When I first saw the My Ocean Challenge, it was really interesting. I'd never been given anything like that at school. I never was really taught about it in that way. So that was really fantastic. And we're seeing more and more climate education being put in schools and educating. But secondly, not less importantly, but is the data collection. We get to collect data through something called the Ocean Pack on board, which is measuring the sea surface temperature, salinity, and the CO2. I studied oceanography at Southampton, so I was obviously very excited about this as well. But one thing that's really important to understand our oceans, to understand our forecasts, which is also very important for us, is to understand the chemistry and its interaction with the atmosphere. And by measuring things like the CO2 and the temperature, we can input this data into models. We send it to big databases. One of them is called SOCAT, and it's a big worldwide database that anyone who's doing research on the oceans can access, and they can take the data and input it to their models to better sort of calibrate or understand it and to see how it's changing. So, we've done the measurements for nearly 7 years now, and we can see each time we go around the world how the oceans are changing and how much the CO2 levels are changing as well, because more than 30% of CO2 that humans emit is actually absorbed by the ocean. So we need to really understand how this massive carbon draw, this carbon capture device is working, and that's how we really get to contribute. The ocean pack's weighing 17 kilos on the boat, and we're looking for every gram, really. We're throwing off any spare food that we have before the legs, and it's not a massive weight, but it is a difference. But it's really cool that we can measure this data wherever we're going. And obviously the fantastic thing as well is we do it on a boat that's powered by the wind. Research vessels, if you were to send them specifically to one place for that, you have to, it's a much bigger thing that, we can't do as much research as they can. We're definitely not trying to replace a whole research vessel, but we can at least assist and help to calibrate different models wherever we go as well. So that's really what we're trying to benefit. And now what's great to see is every boat in the fleet is also collecting some sort of oceanic data, whether it be microplastics or DNA or things like this. And it's a really good use of these racing boats as well, because we go at high speeds and we don't emit any CO2.
Any other questions from anybody else in the room? Do you sail yourself? Yeah, that's a very sailor question. So the boats, obviously, they're not the same, but are they different enough that you have to just do your own navigation? Are you, as a fleet, are you sort of locked in together? How does the differences in the boat affect your navigation?
I think what we always try to do is just do the best route we can with our boat as well. For sure, you have to keep a look on the competitors, but I think navigation is has still a big impact on the result, because if you take a wind shift a bit better than the other boat, and we saw that even yesterday on the Imocas, it can quickly make a big difference in the miles you can gain or lose. So it's always really important, and for sure the boats have some strengths in different conditions. Some boats are a bit faster in lighter stuff, or it's easier. I think, like for example, for Malizia, it's a really strong boat in strong downwind conditions. So for sure, it also can affect a bit the difference of performance of the boats can also a bit affect the end results.
So when you're navigating, you will sail more on the angles that suit your boat. And if the competitor is sailing on the angles that suit their boat, so be it. You have to play to your strengths. Yeah,
I think so. You always have to think what's the best. How can I use my boat in the best way, for sure.
Sir, you said you had a question? Okay, Will, maybe you take that one first, and then Justine. So advice for somebody who's starting out in navigation. Where do they kind of kick off? How do they get better?
Yeah, there's a few different points, I think, to that. We've both done the solitaire de figure together. We've both done solo sailing where we have to do a bit of the navigation ourselves. So we both learn it. But I think, something that's been really interesting to see is we had Nico Lundven in the last race. We had Julien Villain, we had Justine. And I've got to sort of see these very high level navigators, how they work and how they do it. And they all have one thing in common. They're all very dedicated to the research. They're really looking into every detail and even the things which might seem a bit more obvious, like there's a little mark here or there's shallow water here, really highlighting these things on the chart and, doing your homework, really. That's really what I see is, the correlation is everyone is doing their homework. They're really looking into the details. What can you do before the race to make your life easier when you're actually sailing? Because more often than not, what happens is I remember at the Fastnet start here, I totally forgot how close we'd end up going to the shore, and I hadn't checked the tide times properly and wasn't sure if I could go over this bank or something like this. Make sure every little detail you can think of before you write down the questions that you have, and you have it on the boat with you, or you have some sort of preparation, or you've done your research, I think. And there's never enough time before the start, especially when the forecasts are getting better and better before. So, from further time out, you can look at things like the current, you can look at your weather stations, you can work out what models you want. And then as you get close, you can start to look at the weather and you can start to build your strategy so that, I think I really noticed that from sailing with the different navigators. And I think doing homework is the best thing.
Yeah, to add from that, I agree with Will. It's a lot about being structured, really organized to be sure you don't miss something. That's important, and as well to, as we said before, to take all the opportunities you can to practice, to even if it's on the water or when you follow some of the races, try to do your own routings or try to do routings for boats even if you're not on board. Try to take the opportunity to practice as much as you can is also a good thing.
One more from the back. Justine, do you want to go first? Yeah, how does that changing climate, it's hot now. It shouldn't be this hot. How does that changing climate kind of affect what sailing for the future?
I mean, I'm not sure how it affects our routes, or because we always have to adapt to the weather we have at the moment. But for sure, I think it brings concern, because we see things that would not be supposed to happen at some seasons. So we knew, like, the Atlantic Ocean, it was warmer than it's ever been measured, like last summer. So we know that all of this affects the weather, and also can bring stronger system, stronger storms, and so on. So I think it's more a general worry, I would say, on my side for climate in general, for sure.
Yeah, Will, anything to add on that one? I mean, as sailors, you've got to adapt, I guess.
There's a couple of things I've seen so far. Firstly is the a lot of our racing's in the Southern Ocean. The ice exclusion zones are defined by how much ice melting is happening, and we've seen in 20 years the ice exclusion zones have moved a lot further north. So it's making our around-the-world trips longer. The other thing as well, or what I really noticed, was one transatlantic, is the Sargasso seaweed. We're getting, you do some Atlantic races now where there's so much seaweed in the water that you can't physically keep sailing. There's islands of it, and you have to stop the boat every 20 minutes. And that was really eye-opening, and that's due to ocean acidification or something. We're not really sure what, but it's some sort of human impact which has changed that in the last 20 years. I think finally just the weather in general, the more energy, I think because of the more heat, then the more intense the storms can be. And although not, like Justine says, not individually, it's changing each leg, but just more and more likely that you're going to see these sort of extreme weather events. So it definitely impacts the racing.
We're going to let these two, Will, you were talking about window shopping. You were just wondering whether you've got everything for the next leg. So I'll let you have a little bit of a look around. Thank you very much, everybody. And well done on the last leg, and best of luck for the rest of the Ocean Race Europe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right.